knows how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with. That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead, make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. We're here 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 9 to noon Eastern Standard Time. Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. Thank you so much for being with me. Lots of stuff to cover this morning. But for now, I have with me the author of Throw Them All Out. And he's also a fellow at the Hoover Institute. Peter Schweizer is with me. And just an amazing book. Peter, good morning. Thanks for being with me.
Hey, it's great to be on with you, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
I definitely appreciate it. Thank you for writing this book, by the way.
Well, thank you. I mean, it always surprised me how these politicians went to office relatively middle class, and then they came back 15, 20 years later rich. And I think now we know how they did it.
That's right. Before we get to the book, tell the folks about the Hoover Institute and what they can do to help.
Oh, sure. The Hoover Institution's at Stanford University. It's I would say, a generally conservative think tank. We've had fellows there have been people like Milton Friedman, who won the Nobel Prize in economics, Ed Meese, the Reagan Attorney General, and we tend to, focus on ideas that promote free markets, traditional values, and a strong national defense. And people want more information, they could go to hoover.org and learn more about the organization.
I want to play for the folks this confrontation, or whatever you want to call it, with CBS 60 Minutes. He confronted Nancy Pelosi about enriching herself using insider information and Visa. Let's go to that short soundbite, Andre.
Meanwhile, listen to this story. Ever wonder why so many people in Congress are super rich? Well, lawmakers like House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi apparently made a killing on stock trades and land deals by using inside information that they get in Congress. 60 Minutes set off this firestorm when they confronted Nancy Pelosi. Let's watch.
What I'm asking is, do you think it's all right for a speaker to accept a very preferential and favorable stock deal?
Well, we didn't.
You participated in the IPO.
Well, I have many
And at the time you were Speaker of the House. You don't think it was a conflict of interest or had the appearance of a conflict of interest?
It only has the appearance if you decide that you're going to have elaborate on a false premise. But it's not true, and that's that.
I don't understand what part's not true.
Yes, sir. That I would act upon an investment.
Peter, that's amazing. Walk us through that story.
Yeah, well, the story is pretty simple. We're used to thinking of bribery in terms of somebody walks into a congressman's office and gives them a shoebox of cash, and that, of course, is bribery and illegal. But there's a very form of what I call legal bribery that takes place, and that's where they do what Nancy Pelosi happened. In 2008, she was the Speaker of the House, and there were two pieces of legislation that had been introduced that were very concerning to Visa. And so what Visa did was contact her and her husband, and they offered her 5,000 shares of Visa IPO stock. That's initial public offering stock. And Visa was going to be going public. It gave them the opportunity, the Pelosi's, the opportunity to buy these at $44 a share. Literally within the day, they made $100,000 because when it went public, it went up to $66 a share and then up to $90 a share. So they literally got $100,000 in their pocket thanks to this inside access from Visa. And guess what, Jesse? The bills that Visa was so concerned about, they passed out of committee, but Nancy Pelosi never allowed them to be voted on the House floor. So Visa got what it wanted. The Pelosi's ended up richer because they got this special access to these Visa stocks.
Wow. There was also an alleged Nancy Pelosi also allegedly made money by pushing for a $750 million taxpayer fund. What was that about?
Yes, this is another thing that members of Congress do. Nancy Pelosi did it as well. She and her husband own office buildings in San Francisco, and there is something that realtors in commercial real estate call a mass transit premium. And the idea is if you've got a really high quality like subway system or light rail system that runs from 2 to 3 blocks from your property, that is the sweet spot. That's where you want to have mass transit. And if you do, it'll more than double the value of your real estate. Well, lo and behold, Nancy Pelosi secured $750 million of taxpayer money to extend a light rail system in San Francisco that, guess what, just happens to run 2 blocks from real estate that she and her husband own. And, of course, their real estate values went through the roof. And people from both parties do this. They do it all the time. And the scary part is not only is it legal, the ethics committees have said it's ethical and okay for them to do this.
How prevalent is this practice of using insider information to make money on stocks and land deals?
I think it's very prevalent, and I think part of it is because government has gotten so much more involved in issues related to, banks and healthcare, a whole host of issues, and so that allows them to leverage their access to information. So, for example, if they sit on a committee that has oversight of the Food and Drug Administration,
right,
and they're talking to FDA officials and they know that a drug is going to be approved for a drug company, it is legal for them and it's so-called ethical, at least by their standards, for them to buy that stock before the rest of us know about it and enjoy the benefit that comes from that drug being approved.
Is it legal for non-governmental people to do the same thing?
It's not. It's a great arrangement, isn't it? The way that it works. Yeah, the way that it works is that the Securities and Exchange Commission says that, if you work for a company and you find out private information about your company and then you trade stock on it, that's insider trading because you have a so-called proprietary responsibility to keep that information secret. But if you're a congressman or a senator and you learn about a whole host of things, you have no obligation to keep that secret. You can trade stock on it. You can have your brother or your sister or your daughter trade stock on it. You can tell your big campaign contributors what you've learned, and they can trade stock on it, and there's nothing illegal about it.
So I guess what's good for the goose is not necessarily good for the gander in all cases, huh?
That's right. It's ironic. I would think that the one group of people in the entire country we would want to keep an eye on when it comes to insider trading would be politicians.
I'm telling you.
They're the ones that write the rules, and unfortunately, they're the ones that have been able to write them and interpret them such that it doesn't apply to them.
I happened to see 60 Minutes the other day when they brought your book to the forefront. What I wanted to know, what made you decide to look into this?
That's a great question. A few years ago, a friend of mine sent me this article that appeared in this economics journal, and the journal's called the Journal of Quantitative Economics. If you're ever looking for some help sleeping at night, this might be a good place to go. Okay. But this study was interesting. They looked at 6,000 stock trades by U.S. senators, and what they found is that corporate executives who trade their own company stock tend to beat the stock market average by 5% a year. Hedge funds, the guys that get paid big bucks to invest money, they beat the market by 7 to 8% a year. The study found that U.S. senators beat the market by 12% a year. And so I thought, there's only 2 ways to explain this. One is that these guys are so incredibly brilliant that I have just never appreciated how wise and smart they are.
Yeah.
And that's why they're able to do this.
Yeah.
Or something else is going on. And it was pretty easy to discover after that, there is something else going on. And we started doing research on everything from the healthcare bill and guys that were trading and healthcare stocks to things that go on in the defense budget and the energy sector and you name it.
No wonder. Now I understand a little better what happens to politicians while campaigning. They tell us one thing, but when they get there, the whole deal is off, and they seem to change on us. If they got it made like this, there's no way they would want to leave office.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. A friend of mine once said the problem is, Washington, D.C., politicians call it a cesspool, but when they stay there long enough, it becomes a hot tub. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. There's a seductive power. I mean, they start realizing they're going to get all these perks and make all this money, and, hey, things maybe aren't so bad, and they go along to get along because they get rich as a result of it.
Let me take a short break. When I come back, Peter, I want you to tell the folks how to get this book. It's just an amazing, informational, insightful book. Back in a moment, folks.
This has been the Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show, produced by Bond Action. To access the podcast of this show, visit us on the web at bondaction.org.